where do you evaluate where you're at boxing career-wise now, Errol? Do you think about retirement or do you still want to fight?
Nah, man, I'm not. There's no reason to fight, man. You know, I asked a lot of questions tonight for myself personally, and you know, going 12 rounds and you know realizing how long that 12 rounds was. You know, it's time to hang them up because that 12 rounds don't usually isn't that long. But it was a long 12 rounds tonight, so it's time to to hang them up.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, wow, wow. The retirement of Errol Spence Jr. comes in the hands of defeat against Tszyu. Ladies and gentlemen, Tszyu at 160 pounds. Errol Spence Jr. on a 3-year layoff. Came out, fought his heart out. Don't get me wrong. Fought his heart out against Tszyu last night, but just didn't have enough. Last night confirmed to us that Errol Spence Jr. is a shell of the man that he used to be. Tszyu gets the unanimous decision victory in Australia. Congratulations to the man. Errol Spence Jr. fought his heart out. He fought his heart out. He tried to give it all he got. Even in the last few rounds, tried to pick it up. Tried to. As Ronnie Shields was telling him, bro, you got to show me something. You got to show me something. Because Tszyu was just teeing off on Errol Spence Jr., man. His face was getting all swollen up. And let's talk about how Errol Spence Jr. looked. Bro, noticeably, the first round, first of all, the dude gets rocked with a huge right hand. The balance is off. The hand-to-foot coordinacy is completely off. Even getting the leverage behind the punches, but keeping the balance at the same time was completely off. Even the front foot battle. Tszyu in the orthodox position versus Errol Spence Jr. in the southpaw position. Errol kept on tying his legs up. It didn't look like the legs was under him compared to what he used to look like in the past, bruh. So noticeable. I was texting my cousin while this fight was going on. And y'all could see that Errol Spence Jr.'s legs looked horrible. Bro, it was so noticeable. If you watch Errol Spence Jr., if you watched him in his prime, that's the first thing that I noticed was, oh my God, his legs ain't under him no more. They stiff. Of course, he's been 3 years out of the ring. Rust, inactivity is going to play a factor in this fight. But me and also a lot of people around the boxing world were hoping, trying to put the belief, not so much the science, you know, and the realness, but it was the belief, a belief that Errol Spence Jr., even being gone after 3 years, even leading up to that Terrence Bud Crawford fight, not sparring for the last 8 weeks of training camp, basically getting in the second car wreck with Terrence Bud Crawford and the defeat that he took in that fight. A goddamn warrior, man. He showed it against Tszyu. The car crash that the man went through, the torn rectum that the man went through, and time, life has officially caught up to him. And that was a shout of what Errol Spence Jr. looked last night against Tszyu, ladies and gentlemen. And Errol Spence Jr., the post-fight interview, he officially calls it a career. He told us going into this fight, however this fight turned out was going to determine the factor of whether or not this man was going to continue on with his career. With all the odds stacked against him, think about it, bro. He's never fought at 160 pounds. When he was a champion, he was the unified champion at 147. So just your first fight back, go against Tszyu at 160 is absolutely ridiculous. But he still tried to attempt it. And a lot of people still believed Ryan Garcia putting 10 grand. Showbiz, the adult, putting like, what, 10, 20 grand. A lot of people still believe that Tszyu, that Errol Spence Jr. was going to be able to get it done against Tszyu. Don't get me wrong. The first 4 rounds, I thought maybe there's a possibility that Errol can make this a close fight and win. He comes out in the first round, loses, gets absolutely rocked with a huge right hand by Tszyu. Like I said, his balance is looking completely off. He's stepping to the side, hitting angles, but when he's hitting those angles, there's no leverage coming behind the punches, and if there is, he's off balance. He's hitting these angles while off balance. It just looked horrible. The hand-to-feet coordinacy was so off. The first round, he gets rocked with a right hand. He comes back out rounds 2 and 3, and I believe won those rounds with his activity. Tszyu is not throwing a lot of punches. Errol Spence Jr. unleashing combinations to the body, up top, down low, started going for the body a lot. I thought it maybe would pay dividends as the fight went on. But the shots weren't affecting Tszyu. They just weren't affecting him, man. Round 2 and 3, go to Errol Spence Jr. Round 4, I gave to Tszyu. Round 5, I gave to Errol Spence Jr. And then that's when things start to fall apart. Round 6, round 7, round 8, round 9, round 10. Hey, you could say that they're swing rounds. Maybe Errol Spence Jr. could have had 1 or 2 rounds in the last 6 rounds. But I had Tszyu winning like 4 to 5 rounds in a row, bro. It wasn't until Ronnie Shields was telling him, bruh, you need to show me something, bro. I can't let another round go like this, man. Errol Spence comes out, starts to, pick it up again. Maybe wins a round or 2. But that second half of the fight, like I said, maybe you give Errol Spence 1 or 2 rounds. It was completely Tszyu's fight, ladies and gentlemen. I think I gave him rounds 2, 3, 5. And if I gave him 2 rounds in the last 6 rounds, then that means I had 5 rounds to Errol Spence Jr. And I had 7 rounds to Tszyu. Now, if there were more swing rounds, then possibly you had it a draw. I seen Dan Rafael say that he had it a draw, ladies and gentlemen. And although I disagree with him, the fight was still pretty competitive. To where I can see why you would think that, but I just don't agree with it. I believe Tszyu was the rightful winner. I believe he did enough. The actual scorecards that they read out, bad. Bro, I don't think Tszyu smashed him like that. But at the end of the day, the right man got the victory, so I'm not mad about it. Tszyu got the victory. At 160 pounds, what can we say about this man? We know Errol Spence Jr. was not the same fighter at all. Not even close to what the man was like in 2019. Tszyu at 160 pounds, man, he was coming forward like a walking punching bag, bro. If Errol Spence Jr. had his feet under him, if he had the same type of skills that he used to possess, he would have killed Tszyu. Tszyu was just walking forward like a goddamn punching bag. The problem was that Errol Spence Jr. just didn't have anything left in the tank to be able to hurt Tszyu, to be able to rock him, to be able to put the combinations, the balance, the speed, to be able to rock Tszyu. It just wasn't there no more. I don't know if Tszyu is going to become a world champion someday. 154 pounds, definitely most not. But the man said that at 154 pounds, he was having a tough time cutting down. He says he's going to be fighting at 160 pounds now in the post-fight interview. So when you look at that division, I mean, look at bro. Xander Zayas just jumped up there. I'm hoping if y'all really want to have some success, hopefully Carlos Adames moves up. Because if he don't, that 160-pound division, which a lot of people say ain't stacked, bruh, y'all better wait for Amari Jones, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all better hope that Carlos Adames moves up. And y'all is lucky that Jonathan Kalim is already moving up. Bruh, there's a bunch of killers in this division. Then I don't know if Tszyu is going to be able to become a world champion based off of the performance that we seen last night. He got the win back, and it was good, but I still feel like against Errol Spence Jr. at that age, not the biggest 160-pound fighter himself. I don't know, Tim. I don't know, man. We got to see Tszyu against a more formidable opponent at 160 pounds before we start speaking like that. But Ladies and gentlemen, Errol Spence Jr. now announces his retirement in the post-fight interview, officially calls it a career. And I'm going to tell you like this, bruh. Shout out to Errol Spence Jr. for always being an absolute fan favorite fighter, bro. I remember, and me and my pops, we don't do this no more, man, but I remember sitting down with my pops watching him against Mikey Garcia. Hey, bro. Whoa, that fight was huge against Mikey Garcia, bro. Watching that fight with Danny Garcia. I love Danny Garcia. Watching that fight with Sean Porter, bruh. And Terrence Bud Crawford, that was a little later. That was, of course, towards the back end, 2023. But all before that, dude, it was just I consider myself lucky to be able to have witnessed Errol Spence Jr.'s career. Splendid as how. Gave me a lot of memories. Very memorable career. Always came into the ring to fight. It wasn't like these other dudes is trying to take tune-ups and waste our times for nothing, ladies and gentlemen. Errol Spence Jr. has always been about that. He's been a dog. And even if he hadn't been in the ring for 3 years, his mentality is that he used to be a dog and he ain't going to lower his level for these goddamn people. He's going to continue to fight with the dogs. Always put it on exciting fights. And now it's finishing his career with money. He says that his life was facilitated. He's got his kids, bro. I heard the post-fight interview, and his kids were telling him that they love him. His daddy, all his kids were telling him that they love him, bro. It's an absolute good feeling to hear your son and to hear your daughters tell you that they love you, especially when you're going through a tough time in your life and you really need somebody to be by your side, bro. Errol Spence Jr., he has a beautiful family. He has his wife. He has a beautiful characteristics, his mom, everybody around him, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad that Errol Spence Jr. finished off the way he did last night without getting knocked out, but fighting like a warrior to the last bout and giving it all he got. My goodness, ladies and gentlemen, it's crazy to say this. It feels kind of, weird because we've been covering Errol Spence Jr.'s career my whole life, talking about him for the last 10 years. For the last, 10 to 12, 13 years? To now coming to my channel and saying this. Errol Spence Jr. has officially retired. This is the last time that we'll ever see the man in a competitive fight inside the ring again. Salute to my dog Errol Spence Jr. All the amazing fights. Salute to his family. And I hope nothing but the best in anything that comes his way in the future, ladies and gentlemen. Tszyu gets the unanimous decision victory. Errol Spence Jr. goes down, retires from the sport, is an iconic legend, unified welterweight champion of the world, been on top of the world, and now he's finishing off strong. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. The balance, the footwork, the hand-eye coordinacy, everything about Errol Spence Jr. last night was so noticeably not there. So noticeably not there. I remember the Errol Spence Jr. who had phenomenal footwork, strong legs under him, strong punches, great combinations, great leverage, great balance. What we seen yesterday against Tszyu was a shell of himself. This is the MMA Boxing Addicts channel giving you my reaction. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. For the last time, Errol the True Spence Jr. has retired from the sport of boxing, and I'm out.